Good day. This is the morning meeting. Welcome in, everybody. Sean, Dan, and I are going to take you through the day briskly. Love your participation. If you want to be in on the conversation like no other, please raise your hand. If you're on the two-way platform, keep all your smack to yourself. Don't put it in the chat on any platform, on X, on YouTube, here on two-way. We're honored, delighted to have you here. Gentlemen, new Prime Minister of Japan is a lady, a woman, a gal. Having studied Japanese government and politics for all my adult life, I would not have predicted that Japan would have a female prime minister before the United States elected a woman president.
Hmm.
Dan, who's the most likely woman to be the first president of the United States? Well, female president of the United States. Go.
Sarah Huckabee.
Sean.
Agreed.
Interesting.
Mark.
Not Sarah Huckabee. I like Sarah quite a bit, but I don't think she'll be the first female president. But
Yeah,
I've no
all right. How about this? Who's
Yeah.
more like? Will it be a Democrat or
Republican.
Republican?
It'll be a Republican.
Yeah, so I agree.
A Republican. I don't know. I spent a lot of time thinking about it this morning. I came up empty, and I thought about Sarah. And again, not impossible, particularly if somebody makes her vice president. But it's kind of crazy. Not just that there hasn't been one in Japan now has a female prime minister, but there's nobody particularly well poised.
Well,
You know.
Elise Slotkin's going to Kansas right after
She is,
after November 5th. Yep.
And none of you. She won't be the first woman president. And none of you said the other Michigander. Neither of you said Gretchen Whitmer.
No.
Possible.
Okay.
Possible.
All right. Here's the day book. The president's at the White House today. Participates in the Richard Nixon Architect of Peace Award ceremony at 11. Is he getting the award or giving the award? Any idea? Anybody know? I don't know.
If you have to ask, I mean, come on.
Then he's having most Republican senators for lunch. Rand was not invited. I don't know if everybody else is invited and going. 4 o'clock, he participates in a Diwali celebration at Oval Office that's open to the pool. So lots of fodder for two-way tonight. And then a Rose Garden Club dinner at 7. So the
club's hopping today.
The club is hopping. I don't know what they're doing between lunch and dinner. Maybe just resetting the table settings. But
Also, it's a totally different playlist. The noon playlist.
yeah.
Yeah. By the way, a little awkward to have the Richard Nixon Architect Award the day after you said Richard Nixon's to blame for the problems in China.
Yeah. I don't know. Good point. There were a lot of stuff yesterday that didn't get any coverage like that. Incredible.
Also, we totally overlooked it was Kamala's birthday, and I feel like we should have acknowledged that. My bad, but
I try not to do birthdays here because we're not Playboy.
I know, but
we can't match
she's
them.
a special case.
Yeah. All right. JD Vance joins Jared and Witkoff in Israel today. Here's the arrival. Usha Vance with the vice president. His schedule's a little hard to pin down. I've been asking people both in the U.S. and Israel, when's he meeting with Bibi? Because he's supposed to meet with Bibi, and I think security is obviously a big issue. One thing he's supposed to do on the trip, and maybe he's done it already, we just don't know, is there's like a war room where they get all the incoming images and intelligence from the drones, the Israeli and U.S. drones. That's kind of the hub for the 200 American personnel there. I was surprised. Again, another thing that didn't get much attention on 2 days ago on 60 Minutes. Witkoff was asked by Leslie Stahl, any chance U.S. troops go into Gaza? He said, highly unlikely, but not no. So I'm sure there's, again, a lot of discussion here about both implementing phase 1 and what's in phase 2. House is still out. Mike Johnson, 10 a.m. press conference. You can set your clock by it. U.S. Trade Rep Mr. Greer testifies before Senate Appropriations Subcommittee at 10 also. The Senate Republicans, as we said, at most of them having lunch with the president in the Rose Garden at noon. And then 2:20, they're voting on some district court nominations with still no sign that the shutdown's ending. Congresswoman Monica McIver is trying to get the federal court to dismiss the charges against her when she went to a Newark immigration center, and she's been charged with assaulting and impeding federal agents. Ohio Redistricting Commission meets at 9 a.m. Eastern. Talk about a new congressional map. If the bipartisan commission can't agree on anything, Republicans get to redistrict the state. Is there 2 seats at stake there or 1? 2, right? I think it's 2.
I think it's potentially 2.
Yeah. So yesterday, we did a bunch of predicting and analyzing about who the big surrogates would be who would go into Virginia, New Jersey. Not a lot of clarity yet on the Republican side, but oh my goodness, what timing. Lots on the Democratic side. Pete Buttigieg is going to be campaigning in both states eventually, starting tonight in Virginia, where he and Abigail Spanberger, the Democratic nominee for governor, are doing a rally in Charlottesville. There you see the headline from New Jersey, where Shapiro, Buttigieg, and Obama are all now expected to come for Mickey Sherrill in the closing days of the race. Still the details of all that being worked out. Mayoral race, Andrew Cuomo was on WABC this morning. Sit-in friends.
I know we've said this a couple times, but just to be clear, it's Mikey Sherrill, correct? Not
Mikey.
Yes,
Sorry, Mikey.
yes.
My bad, Mikey. Thank you for that. Andrew Cuomo at this hour is addressing the Association for a Better New York amidst lots of conversations about Sliwa getting out of the race. We'll get to that in a moment. Sarkozy went to prison today. All right, let's talk about the shutdown. My view now is both sides think they're winning, and you say, okay, it's going to be settled by health insurance being cut off, or it's going to be settled by people not getting paid, or settled by this or that. Both sides say, well, when that bad thing happens, the other side's going to be blamed for it because our pollsters say the other side's being blamed, so they'll be blamed for everything bad. So, Sean, what do you think of that analysis that we're further away from a deal than ever, even though there are reports this morning that there are healthcare conversations taking place? I think it's completely frozen until the president unfreezes it.
So I have an ominous take on this. Well, no, and I say this just because we have to. Part of our job is to give analysis, but sometimes it's not what you want to hear or what you hope for. I think something's going to happen, tragically or unfortunately, that will force them to say we have to just we have to give this up. And I say that begrudgingly, but I actually I say it because I agree with you. Both sides think they're winning. And normally there's light at the end of the tunnel where it's like this side's going to cave. I don't see it. And this is not what I mean, obviously, never thought that it would come to this, but something's got to happen to change the mindset. And so that's where I am.
I think if something tragic happened, both sides would blame the other side. They'd say Timmy fell down the well because of Chuck Schumer, or Timmy fell down the well because of Mike Johnson and Donald Trump.
I agree. But I think that's what forces it.
Yeah. I'm actually more optimistic because I think, as we've discussed for weeks, everyone knows how this will ultimately end. And I think the fact that Republicans are starting
meaning we know what the deal is.
Yeah. And Republicans are now apparently starting to have serious conversations about what their healthcare, fix is going to be. Oh, I like it. Good breakfast idea.
Got to have a protein cookie. Go ahead. Don't mind me.
Yeah. Republicans are starting to talk about okay.
Did you bring enough for everyone?
Yeah, I did. If you're in New York, sure. Go ahead.
What are we going to do to on the Obamacare stuff? And I do, even texting with people on Capitol Hill here on the Democratic side, they know that this cannot go on too much longer. There's no talk of we'll do this through Thanksgiving. They're like, yeah, we know this is going to have to end pretty soon. Again, the question is who blinks, and I think that I do continue to think that by the end of next week, that middle part of the Democratic Party is going to start talking about how do we get out of this.
You do realize there's a bit of irony here that we're about to come up on, and I say about to, we're 2 weeks-ish out from the 7-week offer to get the government open.
Well, so that's the other interesting thing, which is if the House passed CR now is passed, let's say the end of next week, you're right back at this in 2.5 weeks.
Right.
So now there's talk about the House is going to have to come back to vote on another longer extension. And that may also be the part of all right.
This is where I think this is the issue, which is Johnson's gotten away with being able to say, I've done our job, which he has. The committees have done their job, which they have. But if we bump up against that deadline, that talking point goes away and you have to come back and say, now what?
Yeah. Just to be clear, I agree with everything you said. Also, I'm eating the cookie not because I'm hungry and not because I'm rude, because that's what people do at the real morning meetings at the network news divisions on which this show is based. Do people eat at those meetings, right? Sean, people eat at those meetings.
Leftover cookies from the night before and stuff. Yeah.
Well, and normally you're not on video, so you have the ability just to chomp away, or I used to do, sit on an elliptical or something like that.
I am paid to bring verisimilitude to this meeting, so I do everything I can. That's what I'm here for. All right, Middle East again.
By the way, I just want to point it out because I know no one's commented on this because it doesn't have the branding, but I am wearing the Barfalo Merino quarter zip. But here's the thing: it's a lot of people look at this and say, "Oh, that's merino wool," and they're right. But it's merino extra fine wool, which is made of from a selected of the best producers in the world. This luxurious yarn that makes the shirt is enhanced by a special production process, creating a sensuous, soft, and extremely durable garment, which I am proud.
Anytime cestrus is used, we're good.
I try to extend the presumption of grace to all. I will say I feel sorry for those of you who have yet to go to 2a.tv/fairway to avail yourself of the 20% off.
By the way, can I just, since we're playing predictions, I will give you guys 500 guesses. You will not guess the color of this according to Fairway and Green. 500 each.
Forest green.
Huh?
Forest green.
Not even close. I mean, like, that's why I'm telling you. I'll give you 1,000 guesses, Dan Turrentine. You get all marks plus the 500 I gave to you.
I'm not good at that stuff.
It's called bottle. That's the color of this, which is I would have said forest green.
Couldn't have picked it off a list of 2 or 100. All right, Middle East. Again, don't really know exactly what Vance's goal is there. Either of you have anything you want to say about the Middle East? If not, we'll move on. All right, Ukraine, Russia. Same thing. Now there's talk that there's not going to be a Trump-Putin meeting for a while. Rubio's meeting with Lavrov. Huh?
He had a call with them.
Yeah. So, a call, whatever. A conversation is really what I meant. So I think we don't have nothing to say about that one either. I would put it on the table. Now, this White House construction story. So yesterday, people started posting photos and video of the construction on the east wing of the White House. That's the building between the West Wing and the Treasury, where the first couple lives, where the First Lady has her offices. And you can see there, it looks like the worst construction site in your neighborhood. Just they've destroyed the White House. The president said something that some are interpreting as it wouldn't destroy anything, but they are. They're building a big ballroom. Now, I'm going to connect this story up with the poop story. Democrats are obsessed with the video the president posted of himself pouring poop on the
sewage,
the sewage, whatever, the No King marchers. And I'll say, I'm just amazed at the capacity of the president to discombobulate people. I don't need to give you examples of videos the Democrats have posted about the president, and the notion that like no Democrats ever done anything to change the White House. I mean, this whole thing, Dan, I'm not saying there's nothing to discuss about these two stories, but the number of emails I've gotten from Democrats in the last 2 days saying, this is it, the sewage video, this is an all-time low for Donald Trump, or this construction thing should be the lead story. Am I missing something? These just seem like when there's serious matters to discuss, including things Donald Trump has done really questionable. I just can't imagine anyone getting too excited about these two things. Am I wrong?
The online meme, it's just silly, right? I mean, it's the way of the world now. People mock people online with, hilarious things. And if it's on your team, you think it's the funniest thing ever. If it's against you, it's an outrage. I think the one thing about the White House.
But just confirm for me, that's not one of the 50th worst things Trump's ever done, right?
No, not even in that day. No.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I think on the White House construction, look, I think people renovate the White House, the ballroom. I actually kind of think it's probably a good idea in the long run.
Yeah.
I think where it does impact things is Trump said they were not going to touch the existing structure.
So he didn't say he didn't want to touch. There was a word he used, disrupt.
He
didn't say touch.
He said they were not. Well, so no. Here's the bigger point. One of the things Democrats always complain about now is they can't trust Trump. They can't trust him to ultimately do the ACA. No, I know you're saying like I could give you 8,000 examples of when Trump misled, lied, whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, this is like Exhibit 9,000. But, I get it. It's just another example of, being misled, I guess, to be charitable. But, I mean, look, the ballroom at the end of the day is probably a good idea. I mean, Trump is right. Constantly putting the tent out there was silly. People didn't like it. It was hot and humid in there sometimes, even though they had AC systems or heating systems. you know, great. Maybe the next White House or the next presidential inauguration is going to be in there.
Sean, what do the critics think they're going to do? Build a ballroom without doing any construction? I don't understand this.
I actually, I have a different take, which is I actually think it's whether or not you like it or not is beside the point. But one of the things that I find fascinating is in Trump's second term, the imprint that he's making on, you'll have the ballroom, you've had the redecoration of the Oval Office, the
paving of the Rose Garden.
Right. Those are things. I mean, and the funny part about it, as much as people,
all presidents redecorate the White House. I mean, sorry, the Oval Office. Yeah.
Right. But I'm just saying, it's the actual physical changes that he's making. And Mark, to your point about the Rose Garden, these are going to be permanent. That will be things that forever are Trump's thing. But okay,
I don't know about the Rose Garden.
I do, because I think here's the funny thing.
President Slotkin will put the grass back.
So when I was there the other day, as much as people whine, it was amazing how many people, because it was the first time for the Charlie Kirk presentation of the Medal of Freedom, the first non-Rose, like official event, non-Rose Garden Club. And it was funny because I'm standing there and everyone kept saying,
sorry, I got to stop. I got to stop because there's a Truth Social post from the president.
Please read.
Apologize. Here we go. Numerous of our now great allies in the Middle East and areas surrounding the Middle East have explicitly and strongly, with great enthusiasm, informed me that they would welcome the opportunity at my request to go into Gaza with a heavy force and, quote, straighten out Hamas, end quote, if Hamas continues to act badly in violation of their agreement with us. The love and spirit for the Middle East has not been seen like this in 1,000 years. It is a beautiful thing to behold. I told these countries in Israel, not yet. There is still hope that Hamas will do what is right. If they do not, an end to Hamas will be fast, furious, and brutal. I would like to thank all those countries that called to help. Also, I would like to thank the great and powerful country of Indonesia and its wonderful leader for all the help they have shown and given to the Middle East and to the USA. To everyone, thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So basically, he's saying to Hamas, clock's ticking. I got countries wanting to go in, and it doesn't sound like it's just Israel.
Wow. We'll see.
As I said yesterday,
I mean, that's what he says. But
look, Hamas has a lot to lose in this. They've already released the hostages. So, look, at some point, these guys have better get their act together.
Well, but the problem is Hamas has a lot to lose if they lay their arms down and walk away. I mean, this is the challenge. It's bad for business to have peace.
All right, back to our regular schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
Go back, keep going.
No, so I will just end it by saying it was funny when I'm standing there among all these folks in the Rose Garden, how many people said, this actually works out really well, because obviously, especially for women who were wearing heels, they would sink in. Guys who had nice shoes on, you get dirty and scut. I mean, so it actually made a ton of sense. I know some people wanted to complain about it, but it actually is very practical. It makes a ton of sense.
No, someone who went to a signing ceremony in the Rose Garden when I was a lobbyist, and it had rained that morning, and it was like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. It was a total pain to walk in wet grass and kind of mud in your suit and dress shoes, whether they're nice dress shoes or not. It does make a lot of sense to ultimately pave that thing, given how it's used, right? You don't sit out there and watch the birds, pluck the roses. Like, it's used for business all day long.
Yeah. All right. Next, Prop 50. Politico's reporting that it's so the effort is so damaged on the Republican side that the polls now show that yes will pass. The Republicans are thinking, well, maybe we should use Trump to try to turn out our base. It's the stupidest thing literally I've ever heard, because the entire yes campaign is based on making it about Trump. And the data is quite clear. If you make it about Trump, yes, will pass overwhelmingly. Sean, here's my question. Why doesn't Trump raise money for this? The whole reason yes is doing well, or not the whole reason, but a big reason, is because McCarthy said he'd raise $100 million and he's raised like $7 million. So why didn't James Blair have Donald Trump raise $100 million for this thing?
I think that's a great topic and a question that he asked. But my point is, I think the problem, and again, this would be the question to ask James Blair, is did they tell you, or did McCarthy come in guns a-blazing and say, I'm going to raise $100 million, I don't need your help, or he never asked? I actually think at this point, I would be surprised if they asked. And I also think because what the bigger problem that they have now is that Trump is very smart about what side to be on of a problem. He always wants to be on the winning side. And so he's not going to go in at this point after reading all the headlines and help, seeing how like just what a disaster this thing is. So they've screwed this thing up. And from the bigger question is, why didn't they get a commitment earlier on, at least publicly, for him to help before they went out and announced something? But this will go down as one of the biggest political disasters, how it was handled strategically. Yeah, and they have no one to blame but themselves.
I agree with you, but it wasn't like the date, Dan, 1 second. It wasn't like the date of this is a surprise. Like the minute McCarthy wasn't raising money, I don't understand why they didn't say to Trump.
Because I think at that point they felt like the car had left the barn, and they had said that why bother now? We're not going to rescue your effort. You guys clearly, I mean, I'm guessing that they saw the polling and said, why would we go waste our money?
Dan, here's like a meta question for you. Given that it now appears to be something of a mismatch, will Newsom get the bump everybody expected he would get? Because it's not going to get very much coverage. It's going to be kind of anticlimactic.
No, I disagree. It'll be very climactic.
I didn't take a position. I just said will.
Yeah, no. I'll two things. One, I think yes, Republicans didn't handle it as well as they could have, but give credit to how well Gavin Newsom handled this. He got everybody in the party on board.
Hell yeah.
He raised all the money. He bulldozed through this when initially the polls were saying this was not going to. He moved the numbers. Now, he's the governor of California. He knows the state.
And he added a lot of names to his email fundraising.
Exactly. So I think part of this is the success. But I would also say probably that James Blair in the White House would say, look, they've been bogged down in California. So all the effort, all the money, everything is going to California. It's going to potentially wash Texas. We are marching around the rest of the country, in Ohio, in Indiana, in Missouri, in Florida, putting little points on the board. They're still, after all of this, probably going to net 8, 9 seats. Maybe enough.
Maybe more if the Supreme Court
rules quickly. Here's the thing, and I've said this
before, good point.
The bigger problem in California is you not only did you get the 5 seats, but you shored up several that could have been in contention. Which is huge because it takes that money off the table going forward, where you don't have to defend a bunch of seats.
But everybody is. That's what all this redistricting is. You're squeezing everything down.
I'm actually giving California. I'm giving California credit, like he didn't just even the 5 out from Texas. He made sure that the 6 or 7 other contentious, vulnerable potential Democrats are shored up. That's a huge win for him. But this is to me, this is something again, you risked when you did this when you shot the first shot in Texas. If they don't get a net 7 or 8, then this has been a lot of squeeze for very little juice.
Yeah, but
it may be enough. Yeah. I mean, that may be ultimately.
Yeah. All right. 3 more topics, and then to your questions. If you're here on the two-way platform, want to be on the conversation, please raise your hand. Just a yes or no. Diddy get pardoned or commuted? Yes or no? TMZ says Trump's considering it could happen this week. Dan, yes or no?
Absolutely, he's going to do it.
Yeah, Sean. Sean T-Spice Diddy.
I think no. I don't think I'm gonna no is no. I'm going.
I'll break the tie and say yes. All right.
By the way, I think you'll see that talking point. Trump, gives a commutation to Diddy, and he's trying to put his enemies in jail. It's a nice synergy.
Maybe he'll do Diddy and Maxwell on the same day.
Oh, I like it.
Just to clear it out. Maybe Thanksgiving. All right, 2 more. Here in New York City, incredible pressure on Curtis Sliwa to get out of the race. Yesterday, he said he wouldn't. But this is an orchestrated effort, and no less than the New York Post editorial board called for him to get out. Here's the wood. That's what we call the front page of the New York Post. Just walk away, beret. Sean, do you get that reference?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cute.
Yeah, okay. Even allies tell Sliwa to drop mayor bid. Don't let Zoran win. And I want to show you. Here's Mandami with Cal Penn. Had a big celebration yesterday for Diwali. Here, this is just pure color for you folks. 113.
Shubh Deepavali. Today is Happy Diwali, and we are so happy to be here in Jackson Heights at the best sweet shop in town. to be distributing sweets, to make people happy, and to remember that the triumph of good over evil.
I'm not the evil, just to be clear.
No, out there.
He was on it.
Out there.
He was on it. He was on it.
Evil is not here. Evil is not here at all. Evil is.
That guy does not have a friggin' care in the world, except for the wrath of the heir apparent to Lee Atwater. For some reason, Bill Ackman is considered like the top political strategist in at least New York City. Here he is this morning on CNBC under the Socratic questioning of Andrew Sorkin about what it would take to get Cuomo in the game. 114, please.
If Sliwa were to say, I'm not going to run, right now the polls are 43, the most recent poll is 44 Mandami, 33 Cuomo, and 19 Sliwa. I've seen polls that say the Sliwa voters are going to vote 65% for Andrew, 7% other, and 25% won't vote, something like this. But if Sliwa voters vote for Andrew, Andrew wins. The key is Sliwa has to be out of the race.
And does Sliwa not only have to get out of the race, and we were looking at the front page of the New York Post this morning, which was also calling for that. Does he have to get out of the race and endorse
He doesn't have to enjoy. Look, I think the smartest thing he could do for his legacy is to say, look, I love New York. I care about this city. I've put a lot of energy in keeping this city safe. You know, the polls, the facts just tell me I'm not going to win this time. I'm going to step aside. You know, I'm going to rely on Andrew to take care of the city. I'm going to keep doing my job protecting New Yorkers, and I'm going to run in 4 years. And then we'll build we'll have a gold statue of him in Times Square.
Dan, this is a serious question. It's not cynical or rhetorical. Bill Ackman, very successful businessman. Yeah. How has he become where a lot of the media treats him now like he is Lee Atwater? Like, what does he know about politics? What does he know about campaigns? What does he know about voter sentiment? How did this happen?
He's always been a quote machine, and he's always been accessible.
But is he? How long has he been involved in politics?
Well, he's been a donor for years. Even when I raised money, he was active.
But before, like, the last 2 years, was anyone ever quoting Bill Ackman?
No, but how many don't? A lot of donors are a little hestant to put their name sometimes on it. They'll speak on background, and you know he cultivates relationships.
Some of us, Sean, some of my best sources are donors in both parties, but most of them don't know piss all about politics. They think they do. Probably some of them off.
But I mean,
now,
to Dan's point,
my sources, just to be clear, my sources who are donors know a ton, but a lot of the others don't know anything. He speaks on the record, but I mean, I don't know. Like, if I were at a cocktail party with Bill Ackman, I wouldn't be the least bit interested in what he had to say about this race.
Well, I would be in the sense that one of the things that I will acknowledge is that not only does he have a lot of money, but he has a lot of friends that have a lot of money. Yeah. And the bottom line is that if you want to know, are they willing to contribute? What do they think? That's important, right? Because at the end of the day,
I agree with that.
Where the money's going is important. Again, I will reiterate what I said yesterday, and this is where respectfully Mr. Ackman misses the mark. Sliwa just doesn't have to get out. He has to not only endorse, but have a deal with the devil where he says, and I will be part of this, because that's what's going to, the numbers require some kind of partnership where it's not like I'm out. He has to say, I'm going to be part of this, because it takes a lot to vote for Andrew Cuomo.
If that happened, if he got out and made it clear that he wanted, and maybe Trump did too, they wanted all Republicans to vote for Cuomo.
And Sliwa would be part of the administration.
Yeah. And Sliwa is Secretary of Deputy Mayor for Katz. Dan, where would you put the odds of Cuomo winning if all those things happen? And again, I'm telling you, those things might happen.
Yeah. I put the odds of Cuomo winning around
under all those circumstances.
40%. I mean, it's
40%.
Here's the
40%.
thing.
Okay, that's pretty high.
Rub some people the wrong way.
Sure.
If Trump got really involved in this,
so maybe if you think that doesn't help, just Sliwa gets out. And Sliwa says, I'm for Andrew. Don't let the socialists win. Andrew says, I can't wait to have this guy be deputy mayor for Katz.
Here's the thing that I think is going to be really fascinating, because at the last debate, Sliwa went harder after Cuomo than he did after Mandani, right? So one of the things, to Sean's point, is you need all his voters going to Cuomo. There is another debate coming up. I wonder if Sliwa tomorrow will stay in and go hard after Mandani. So you're saying to your voters, It cannot be him.
Yeah.
You got to go with the other guy.
Right. That's your moment. I got to be honest with you. Like tomorrow, I've said 100%. Mondami's your mayor. He should start going to Gracie Mansion and measuring the drapes.
Yeah.
But that being said, if you're going to do it, you need a moment, and you need a moment when people are paying attention.
Right.
If I were him right now, if I were Cuomo today, I'd get a beret, go over and hang out with Sliwa and say, "Hey, beret to beret."
Bring some Purina cat chow.
Not bro to bro, beret to beret.
Beret to beret, and say, listen, here's the deal. You are deputy mayor. I would go further than cats. I would say all animals.
Right. Okay.
All animals.
Deputy mayor for species. Sean, if all that happened, if it's stage managed just right, what's the odds Cuomo becomes the mayor?
65.
65.
Oh, I think it's below 50 still, but it's close.
No, everything. If everything plays out,
happens.
Sliwa gets to be all deputy mayor for all species.
Yeah.
He's joining 65%.
I think the answer is 35, but I'm telling you, it might happen.
Yeah.
It might happen.
I'll tell you what, if Sliwa should announce it at the end of the debate, because it will be the headline next day. Sliwa drops out and endorses Cuomo. It would take all the energy out of Mondani coming out of that debate.
Actually, I'll respectfully disagree. I would come out of the gate, because now you make the entire campaign that debate now becomes 2-on-1, and it's
or have a press conference with Andrew right before.
You know what you do? You walk out, you pull the beret off, and then you make the announcement. Throw it on the ground.
No.
Right?
Boom. I'd like to see them do a cute video where Curtis pulls the beret off, throws it up in the air like he's Mary Richards at the opening of Mary Tyler Moore Show, and then Andrew catches it and puts it on.
Oh,
says,
I got one better. What if, and I'm just saying this, I know Cuomo's folks are on, what if Cuomo shows up to the debate and it looks like it's just Sliwa? He pulls the beret off, but instead of the beret, pulls the entire mask, and it's really Andrew Cuomo, and he says, I am now Sliwa.
Team Curtis. Yeah. All right. We got a lot of ideas. Team Cuomo, these are all free. Last story, and this
You're
is
welcome, Melissa.
this one's a doozy. This is a doozy. Anna Bauer writes for a thing called Lawfare, and she wrote an item in Lawfare. It's a online legal publication, quite well read in the legal community. She wrote an item summarizing the New York Times story about the Letitia James prosecution, and then the next thing she knows, she's getting text messages on Signal from Lindsay Halligan, the former tax attorney. Is that what she was? Real estate? What did she do? And she'd never been in court. Insurance, I think insurance. Lindsay Halligan, who's been doing the prosecution because no career person would do it. And she starts just having this long Signal conversation with her, saying respectfully that Anna Bauer was wrong in her legal analysis of the Times write-up of the case, and sends her, like, over the course of a couple of days, sends her a bunch of messages. And then when Anna and her editor decide to go to the Justice Department and say, we're going to write about this because she never said any of this was off the record, they say, oh, no, it was off the record, but Lawfare decided to publish it anyway. It's not super revelatory. Probably the newsiest thing in Anna's Bauer's view, she disclosed grand jury material, which would be inappropriate. Sean, my first question for you is, like, I don't know Lindsay Halligan, and one thing that's striking about it is, as far as I know, she's not talked to any reporters, although perhaps she's talking to a lot of reporters and she remembers to say off the record. But what goes into the mindset of a government official who starts texting a stranger on Signal and talking about a case like that? Like, how does that happen? Inexperience?
Well, I mean, I with all due respect, I think it comes from the top, meaning they watch President Trump do it and they think I can do it too. And they don't. Again, this is where people try to emulate Trump and don't fully appreciate the sort of
degree of difficulty
of him. But I also don't think it's a bad. I mean, like, again, I know she took issue with the fact that she was just or analyzing the Times piece. But there's nothing wrong with an official reaching out and saying, hey, I want to talk to you about your analysis or your story or your punditry, whatever. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, to me, it would be one thing if she was saying or doing something inappropriate. But in this case, she's saying, hey, you're a respected person in this space, whether you're an influencer or a bona fide member of the Fourth Estate, and I want to just share with you my thoughts on your analysis. Great, good.
All right.
I mean, the only thing is, I think this does stem from the ethos of 2.0 is work the press from every angle all the time, every time. And whereas it was more Trump in the first term, everyone, cabinet secretaries, everyone, always win the headline, always be dominating.
Right. Yeah.
And the U.S. attorney just going out there, it's crazy. But
yeah. What's her name? Lindsay
Halligan.
Halligan. Yeah.
Okay.
No, signal me.
Just come on 2-8 tonight. Just do it.
All right. Noah points out that Ackman was playing pundit about Bloomberg for president in 2015. Doesn't mean anyone should have listened to him.
Oh, he plays pundit on the presidential, everything.
Yeah.
He'll talk to anybody about anything.
Yeah. JD Vance is doing a press conference in a couple hours in Israel. And then tomorrow, I don't know if it's a press conference, but he's talking to the media. And then he's meeting with Bibi tomorrow. That's what I'm told from two different people. I hope they're both right, but they're saying the same thing. So thank you for that. All right. Time for your questions, comments, reviews, proud display of your Fairway and Green merch, whatever you'd like to do at the time. This time is your time, two-way community. So get ready. If you want to eat a protein cookie on camera, do that.
Good?
Oh, so good. But I was super hungry. I was super hungry.
You need to leave some crumbs on your lapel next time. Then it's really like kind of meeting-esque. No, you don't. You don't have any. You don't have any.
Yeah, there's some there's some on the table. You know what I could do that's meeting-esque? I could pretend to brush them into my hand, but really just brush them onto the floor. And then that'd be meeting-esque. Priscilla, welcome in. Thank you for joining. I think it's your first time here. If I'm wrong, I apologize. Is it your first time here?
Try to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. First time here, right, Priscilla?
It is the first time I read.
Welcome. Yeah. Long time, first time.
Before the election.
Yeah. Welcome in. We're delighted to have you here. How'd you start watching two-way?
So I heard you on the radio. Whenever I'm in the car around noon, like I do listen to the Megyn Kelly show, and I think the three of you came on months before the election. And then I actually listened to your show more often than hers, but on YouTube.
Yeah. But Priscilla.
For the first time, I just wanted to
go ahead.
tell you why I decided to put you on Zoom and for the first time figure out how to get on. Because yesterday I was listening and somebody asked a question about Venezuela and Argentina. And I'm like a Brazilian American. I'm from Brazil. My entire family's from Brazil, but I've lived in the US since 1986. You know, my dad moved here for work. I was in high school and I've pretty much lived here all my life. But because my entire family's in Brazil, we vacation down there. Many Christmases. I have 5 kids. We fly down there at least once a year.
Wow.
Brazil. Awesome. And, the Brazilian and Argentine community is pretty close knit. Like depending on the exchange rate, you rent a house at the beaches in Argentina or the Argentines come over. Like I have many Argentine friends, some Venezuelan friends as well. And the point that I wanted to make is, so I would have many questions for you guys, but I think I just wanted to more say something as a follow-up to that. I do think that what the Trump administration is doing in Venezuela and Argentina is related. I don't think those two things can be viewed separately. And I think it's interesting for us, like the descendants of Latin America, I can tell you that we absolutely love that Marco Rubio is Secretary of State because he's and by the way, I have Cuban relatives too, and who live in Miami. So I think that Marco Rubio being the head of the State Department is huge for anybody that's a descendant of anywhere in Latin America. And what we have in common, if you're a descendant from Cuba, Venezuela, Brazil, Argentina, Bolivia, Colombia, is many of us fled, not necessarily fled like the Cubans did, but we left Latin America because it's very hard to build wealth there in the long term when you have your bank accounts frozen, assets taken, when the left is in power, currency devaluations over and over and over. When I was growing up, like things in the stores, you couldn't even have prices on merchandise. You had to run to the store after you got paid because there was if you bought merchandise in the morning, it was cheaper than in the evening. That's how bad it was in Brazil when I was growing up. So I think what Trump is doing is strengthening the hand of the right in Latin America overall and weakening the left. What he's doing to the Venezuelan boats is really freaking out the leaders of Brazil, Colombia, Bolivia. And the other thing that is interesting to understand is that those heads of states in Cuba, like Castro and now Canel Diaz, and Venezuela, Chavez, and then Maduro, in Brazil, Lula, in Argentina, Kirchner, Hernandez, through the Foro de Sao Paulo, which is this organization founded by Lula, they get together, and through the state oil companies, they pass money around and they campaign with each other. They're close friends. So I think what Marco Rubio is doing is weakening the left and strengthening the right in Latin America. And it's worth it for him to do this the two $20 billion facilities to Argentina, because if Milei can win, or his party can win in the municipal elections and do well and continue to implement those reforms, it weakens the left all over. Because like I said, they're interrelated. And the more the right can stay in power, they do have more responsible fiscal policies. And in the end, less people leave Latin America to come. I know right now immigration is not a big deal because Trump closed the border, but it will be if the left, if Democrats get back in power. And migration in America diminishes if the right is in power.
You've said a ton of really interesting stuff, which we're going to pick up on. Just tell us, where do you live here in the United States?
I've lived in Boston or Massachusetts for college, then Chicago for graduate school, like business school. Then I moved to New York for work and lived there for 22 years. Did work on Wall Street for many years, but then eventually had 5 kids. So you can't work on Wall Street with 5 kids. It's just too much. So I'm actually a stay-at-home mom. And we did move to the suburbs.
In the New York City area.
It's very much New York City.
Okay. I'll say 3 quick things about all the really smart things you said, and then turn over to Sean and Dan. First of all, right now the President of the United States is dealing with Ukraine, Russia, China, and the Middle East. And so if none of that stuff were happening, and that's an incredible story that he's dealing with all 3 of those things at a very high and intense level, what's going on in Latin America would be a massive, even bigger story and get more coverage, number one. Number 2, George W. Bush was the last president who really came into office saying, we're going to make big change in Latin America. And then 9/11 happened and the whole thing went out the window. And then lastly, you're absolutely right about Secretary Rubio. He's an expert in this area. He obviously has a heritage connection to it. But as busy as he is doing all the things he's doing, he is the architect of all this stuff. And he is incredibly involved. And what's happening is history right before our eyes. There's never been a Secretary of State like this, National Security Advisor, whose focus on Latin America is so intense. And there's 6 countries right now. There's 6 different Latin American countries minimum where there's serious policy stuff happening that's impacting the bilateral relationship and the regional relationship. It's extraordinary. Sean,
has your view or the view of you and your family and friends of Marco changed from when he was a senator to now Secretary of State? Meaning, when he was a senator from Florida, did you admire him, respect him as much as you do now, or is his role and his accomplishments as Secretary of State really brought him into the spotlight more?
I've always liked him, but seeing him on stage drinking a lot of water that one time that was not that did not come across very well. So I think my image of him improved since he's very well spoken as Secretary of State. I think he has improved even since he took the job. But yes, my view of him has improved, but I don't think he is any different on policy. He's been on to these Latin American leftist tyrants for a long time. Oh, yeah. He knows exactly what they are, which is why I could go on for an hour in Brazil, which of course I won't. But what he's doing in Brazil, it is absolutely lawfare. What happened with former President Bolsonaro there, and the fact that he's gagged to an extent that is not even comparable to what happened to Trump here. They absolutely stripped him of power in terms of being eligible to run in 2026 and 2030 because they're afraid if he ran, he would take power. And he's completely gagged. He cannot talk to the press. That doesn't get enough attention here. So the fact that Marco Rubio has now revoked the visas of 8 Supreme Court ministers is very meaningful for Brazil. And he put the Magnitsky law, I think that's how you pronounce it, on the head of the Supreme Court justice, who's been the head of the lawfare. So that guy's been stripped of his credit cards, and it's hugely meaningful because it kind of is showing to Brazilian leadership, lawfare has consequences. And that's not even talked about in the US press, but it's a huge story in Brazil. And it's Rubio that's responsible. So people in Brazil absolutely love what Rubio is doing.
Dan.
Yeah, I think it's you made so many fascinating points, and you started by talking about socialism and fleeing the region. This is something that in 2020 Democrats, when even though Biden won, we lost with our margins continued to shrink with Latinos. And one of the things we heard in focus groups after the 2020 election was some of the talk about kind of socialist ideas and defunding the police really freaked out Latinos in Nevada and in certain areas because it reminded them of home. And they're like, that's, we left that. We don't like these leftist policies. So when people talk about how could Mamdani hurt the Democratic Party going forward, to your point, Trump won Latinos overall. And I think that you'll continue to hear talk about this. I think that one interesting thing about Argentina is it was in Bloomberg, I think today, the banks are very hesitant to provide this $20 billion loan without a U.S. guarantee of repayment because they're so uncertain about what is going to happen in Argentina. Look, China has been on the march in South America for the last 20 years. I think it's great somebody is trying to bring them back into our fold. Again, I keep saying this with Trump. I'll be so curious to see what his base's pain threshold is for involvement with potentially invading Venezuela, a bailout of Argentina. We're getting involved. I mean, once you're in, you're in. And this is all being driven by the Trump administration.
Yeah, Priscilla, thank you. Very grateful. I hope you'll come back regularly.
Thank you.
Thank you. 5 kids.
Ooh.
5 kids. Tony, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know after you unmute where you are, what's on your mind for Sean and Dan. Thank you for being part of Two Way.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the sun is in my face.
All good. You got it.
I got it. I'm down in Huntsville, Alabama.
Congratulations on the big Space Force move there.
Yes. Some people are happy and others are not so happy because we're like, where's all the traffic going to go? Where's the water going to come? There's a lot of infrastructure issues. But I wanted to say 2 things. One is, yesterday you guys were talking about the fact that a lot of people in the country don't really feel the impacts of the shutdown, but we definitely do here. Like my husband took an Uber last week and the Uber driver was commenting on how dead the city is. And he was like, nobody's going out to dinner. Nobody's booking Uber rides. Like he really appreciated the fact that my husband pre-booked the ride because he knew it was a guaranteed fare. Driving around, he's like, I'm getting nothing, So I think there are pockets in this country where it is a lot more of an impact. My husband works for a defense contractor and they're going to start furloughing 1 day a week now because of the shutdown. And then that's happened before. But what I wanted to ask you guys was I was listening to people talk about the No Kings and the rally and everything. And I'm just, and Mark has talked about this a lot on his show here and then his other one and the role of the media. And I feel like when I grew up in the 90s, you didn't know who people voted for. I remember like going with my dad to vote and seeing like my teacher or whatever and being like, oh, I wanted to ask them, who'd you vote for? And my dad was like, we don't do that. That's rude, because we live in this community with them. It doesn't matter. We have to deal with the outcome. And I feel like, especially over the last 10 years, we now have this permission structure where not only are we supposed to know who everybody voted for, we're supposed to treat them differently according to that. And we're supposed to treat that and the rally, I'm glad it was peaceful and all that, but it kind of made me sad because it reminded me how far apart we are and how I don't know how we get back, and I look at the role of the media and then there's, the second wave of podcasts and everything. How do we turn the ship around? That's the reason why I watch you guys. And I really try to avoid a lot of other stuff because I feel like you are trying to normalize. It's okay to disagree and still be friends. But I see it so many places where people, I don't know. I don't know how we turn the ship around. It's like an aircraft carrier. It needs a lot of space and a lot of room. And I feel like we're heading for a crash. And it's I think has the potential to like wreck the American dream. And I don't know where we go from here. But I really appreciate what you guys do because I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah, Tony, you speak for tens of millions, and both your analysis and your frustration. I'll just say Curtis Lewa just held a press conference and said he will not get out of the race under any circumstances. So
You
much
will
for
not get out of the race today?
No, he said he will not get out under any circumstances. So
Okay.
we owe you all about 7 minutes of us sitting around analyzing if he gets out. Tony, if you were in charge of everything and could, speak to all the politicians and everybody in the media, like what would you recommend? How would you recommend change come?
I would encourage more conversations. Like when I saw Benny Johnson had Ro Khanna on, and I thought that was great. And I would recommend that people go on, but really try and focus on like, what do we agree with versus what do we disagree with, and have it be such a battle, right? Because Americans need that permission structure and that reminder that we agree with more than we disagree with. And I think that permission structure doesn't exist anymore because social media has turned us into, it's just dopamine hit after dopamine hit of I'm right in my echo chamber. And, I think it's helpful to see people, they're talking and they actually do agree. And I think we need that reminder, and I don't think we see it hardly at all. And I'd like to see more of that.
Yeah. Dan, if you were king, what would you do? What would you recommend? That's a great suggestion from Tony. What else would help?
Respecting your opponent, I think is the thing that has started to dissipate here. I've said this before. I'm actually very confident things will get better because at some point the marketplace will demand it. And right now the marketplace rewards kind of absolutism, conflict. I don't think we will have another president probably in my lifetime who goes online and says the other side is scum and dirtbag. Like, and look, Democrats then respond in kind, right? I mean,
Pelosi's on her way out.
Right. They call him a fascist, etc. I do, there'll still be conflict, there'll still be intensity, but it starts with just respecting the other side.
Yeah.
Sean?
So I'm first of all, thank you for coming on and thank you for what you've said. I want to take issue with part of what you said, but sort of agree with you on another part, because I believe that like conversation is the cure, right? And to Dan's point, it's about respecting and acknowledging the other side, which I feel like as someone on the right, this is the bigger problem. And I don't mean to try to make this a right-left issue, but I don't have a problem like with people on the left or with outlets on the left or platforms on the left. Good. That's the beauty of this country. That's the beauty of the First Amendment. I think that most of the people on the left do have a problem with people on the right. I think that's fundamentally the problem.
Yep.
Okay. And where I have an issue, Tony, is I don't think it's about agreement. I used to have this when I've had, both my show now at 6 and my previous show when I was on a network, where I would bring on people on both sides, and I would get people. I'd have Barney Frank on the show. Now I can't think of one
There's
thing
a name.
I agree with that. Okay. But he loved coming on the show, and he would tell people, I love coming on your show because you actually want to have a conversation, right? I don't agree with him on anything. I don't want to agree with him on anything. But I actually think through conversation, as someone who is a very proud Trump supporter, fiscal conservative, social conservative, I think that by having a respectful conversation, I actually bring more people to my side. Right. So I want to debate issues of life, the Second Amendment, and say, wow, here's the flaws in your argument. And I hope that I think that our points are better than theirs. Now, maybe somebody listens to that and disagrees and say, wow, I think Dan Turrentine made better points than you. I think Barney Frank made better points. But I actually want that conversation to occur. Right. And so that's the difference, is that I don't want to shout them down. I want to say, okay, you made this point. Here's why I disagree with that. Here's why I think I'm better, or my side's better than yours. I think that's what's missing, right? Conversation is the cure to this whole thing. But I think one side wants to have that conversation, another side doesn't.
Dan, hold on. Dan, do you accept that characterization?
I don't fully accept it, except that I do agree with Sean that I think the average Trump voter understands Democrats a lot better than Democrats are willing to understand Trump voters. Democrats, I think, have their fingers in their ears and just keep saying it's a fever dream. They're crazy. They're going to sober up and realize how insane they were. Whereas I think because a lot of Trump voters were Democrats, they've left the party. They're like, no, I'll tell you all the reasons I've had problems with them. I get why they my parents were. So I do think we share responsibility for that. I think Trump's conduct of, as he likes to say out loud, if you're against me, I hate you. And I'm going to,
Tony, what did you want to say?
Oh, I was going to say, when you asked me for other things, something else occurred to me while Sean was speaking. And I agree, we need to have conversations. The other thing I would do is I would tell all news organizations, you can't label people liberal, progressive, right wing, get rid of, just stop saying Megyn Kelly, the right wing, whatever, Megyn, you just use her name. And I think that when you start, it's a trigger point, right? And so it just conditions you to view this person through this lens. Whereas when you're having a discussion, like Sean said, if you're just person to person having a discussion and you can leave a lot of the labels aside, I don't know.
So I'm a big believer that this needs to be consumer and citizen driven, because the politicians, the media respond to the incentives, the market incentives. And even on this platform, some of you have heard me say this, we'll have somebody on and 1,000 people will put in the chat and 100 of them will email me. I'm never watching again because you had someone on who I didn't agree with. Steve Elmendorf's one of the smartest Democratic strategists of the last 100 years. We have him on Two-Way Tonight all the time. And people say, I'm never watching again because Steve Elmendorf is so left-wing. And so even here, even on this platform, explicitly dedicated to letting all points of view be heard under one roof. It's not a platform just for centrists, moderates, and independents, although we love having them here. It's for people on the far left, the far right. I had Laura Loomer on. People said, how could you have Laura Loomer on? I'd have bin Laden on if he were alive. We want all voices under one roof.
But
right?
that's the point, though, is that if you can't, it's like whether or not it's, to your point about someone horrible, right? Part of it is if you really believe they're horrible, then expose them, have a conversation and let people go, my God, what a horrible person. But let that, but do that. I will say my one sort of drum that I got to bang today again is part of the problem again is social media. This is where you want to talk about tribalism. This is what Mark Zuckerberg personally is responsible for so much of the destruction of the fabric of this country because of what they have done and what the algorithm allows to have happen. And I know that there's political benefits to these platforms that everyone wants, but at the end of the day, that is killing the next generation of Americans.
100%. Tony, grateful to you for coming on. Please come back, bring all your friends.
I recommend you guys to everyone.
Thank you for doing that. And by the way, the three of us will be on.
Wait, did we establish where are you?
Alabama.
Huntsville. I'm sorry. You're right.
The three of us will be on with Megyn Kelly tomorrow, by the way.
Well, then I'll be sure to tune in.
See you there. Thank you very much. Little news on the media front. Warner Brothers Discovery, that owns HBO, CNN, and Warner Brothers Movie Studio, which has been the subject of takeover rumors from Paramount and Comcast and others, announced today that they're for sale. They're putting out a for sale sign, and if people want to make bids on some or all of the assets, they're not saying exactly who's bidding, but they say it's safe to say there've been multiple people have expressed an interest. So Netflix, Amazon, Apple may want them. Paramount may want them. Comcast may want
Skydance.
them. I don't think Disney wants them, but
I don't think
everybody else. Everybody else.
I'll put a $5 on Skydance makes that happen, and the Trump administration will love that CNN will come under the thumb of Barry Weiss and
approve it right away. Okay, we'll see. Sean, what do you have tonight?
Well, I'm breaking it all down with Mr. Bill O'Reilly tonight. A lot. I love his take on history, and so obviously where Trump fits in all this is going to be the topic du jour.
Dan, you have never heard my Bill O'Reilly stories back when I was his researcher at ABC News, but soon I'll tell them to you.
You know what we should do, Mark?
Yeah.
You know what we should do? We should just do that live.
Do it live. We should do it live. That's a reference for those of you who don't get it.
That's it. The Bill O'Reilly tree would be an interesting thing because Jesse Waters worked with him. You've worked for him. That's an interesting.
Yeah, I learned a lot from Bill about how to be a journalist. Tonight, two ways left today as of now. 6 o'clock Eastern time. This says 4 o'clock, but it's 6 o'clock. Yeah, 6 o'clock.
No, it says 6 in front of us.
Well, it says 6 on the screen. In my text it says 4. But it's 6 o'clock, regular time, both on Two-Way and on YouTube. one of our favorites, Hogan Gidley, and then former White House press official Yemisi Egbewale. Yemisi.
And I can only say that I don't say that to
Yemisi.
correct you, but if
no,
Yemisi is
you're right.
watching, I was with her last night and she corrected me on how to pronounce her name. So
Yemisi. By 6 o'clock, I'll have it down. Remember, I can't pronounce anything. Yemisi Egbewale, former chief of staff and advisor in the Biden White House press office, Democratic strategist, founder of Podium Strategies. They're going to be a delightful pair. So join me at 6 o'clock for that. And then Moynihan Report, Michael's joined by Thomas Chatterton Williams, the author of Summer of Our Discontent. Join Michael on Two-Way at 7 tonight. And we'll be back in 23 hours with more of this program. Grateful to everybody who participated. And we'll have a lot to talk about. If nothing else, JD Vance. Thank you all. Gentlemen, see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.